Hebrews chapter 13 is where we'll begin this morning, and we'll answer the third question about this trait that all Christians should have of thankfulness or gratitude. And that is simply this: how should we give thanks? We would all agree that from what we've looked at in the Bible, as a Christian, we should be thankful for all sorts of things. But how? Well, look at Hebrews chapter 13 and verse 15. It says, "By him, therefore, let us offer the sacrifice of praise to God continually, that is the fruit of our lips, giving thanks to his name." And so, this is going to seem like rocket science, right? But the best way, the very first way that we should give thanks is with our lips, in words. Say thank you. Express it with our voice. And when was the last time? Oftentimes when we go to God in prayer, we have our prayer list, and it's usually requests, isn't it? And it may be good things. You understand, when I say this, there's a lot of things in life that we may have or we may do that are good things. And so doing them doesn't make it bad and wrong, all right? I want to say that. So if you have a prayer list and it is like prayer requests for family members to be saved or friends to be saved or for those that are sick or for our missionaries, that's all good. But let's go back to what I was about to ask is, when was the last time in prayer that you went to God and for maybe 5, 10, 15 minutes, or maybe that whole entire time that you prayed, you did nothing but thanked God for all his blessings? Because if you ever took the time to sit down with a pen and a paper, or a device and a whatever stylus you want to call it, and write down everything God's done for you, you would probably not realize it until you started writing it down. But if you just simply went through that list in prayer and thanked God for it, it would easily take up 10 to 15 minutes. If you're here today and you know Christ is your Savior, right on the top of that list should be salvation, correct? Yes? No? You're like, nope, it's not top of my list. All right, okay. I know it's Sunday morning. I know it's a bit warm. And I hate to say this, it's not as warm as it's going to be, but, welcome to let's skip, spring and go straight to summer. And then the next day, let's go back and everyone gets sick, and then we wonder why. But anyways, it would take some time. So, salvation. If you're married, hopefully on your list is your spouse. Correct? Some of you are looking at me really funny. But if you're married, if you're not married, well, then you can't be thankful for your spouse, but yet, okay? If you're married, maybe something on your list should be thankful for your children. The children God's given you, or the child, or whatever, that nature. Or a child God's put into your care for a time, and whatever that may be. And if you're in a church, you should be hopefully thankful for the church that God's put you in, and the people that God's put into your life in that local body of believers. And and we can go on and on. If you have a roof over your head, you should be thankful. I'm going to take you this morning in the morning service on about a 10-photo mission trip. All right? And hopefully, then we should show these photos at Pursue, because the teens would instantly become more thankful for the rustic facilities we have. Everyone always says, the facilities that you rent, they're really rustic. Yes, they are. But I'll take you on a mission trip to a youth camp where their dorms are tents. And their meeting hall like this, they did have a tarp up where they were going to meet under, but they had a slight problem. Too many kids showed up, and they didn't fit under the tarp. So the church service is now in the open air. There is no roof. It's just seats out in the middle of a field. And there's a little stage that they, custom built to put out there. And but you look at these things, and what's interesting is there's a photo that I saw that I grabbed, and we'll look at it in a few minutes in the morning service. You see all these young people with all these tents. Then you see that there's this photo of these boys in their dorm, in their tent, and they're smiling from ear to ear. They're as happy as they can be to be at a camp. And I'm sitting there going, I wonder if in Australia, if down in the paddock, we just put up a bunch of tents and said, there's your dorms. And the other side of the field, we just set up a bunch of chairs and said, there's the meeting hall and the dining hall. Would we get a photo of young people in those tents smiling? Probably not, right? Probably not. But it just gives you something that you should be thankful for. And what do we have? And, by the way, it's a good thing. Why I want to show you those photos is because you can see faces that when we gave to help that camp take place, you can see what's going on. You can see what's being done. You can see the lives being impacted with that. But how should we give thanks? In words of thanksgiving. All right? Next thing, Daniel chapter 6. And verse 10. Here's something that I think we've heard this passage time and time again if you've been in church any length of time. But there's one little section of this verse that I think we often miss. All right? Daniel chapter 6 and verse 10. Now when Daniel knew that the writing was signed, what's that writing? The writing that if anyone prayed to any god other than the king, they would be thrown into a lion's den. Yes? That's the writing we're talking about. So when he knew that was in place, here's what he did. He went into his house, and his window being open in the chamber toward Jerusalem, not hiding, he nailed upon his knees 3 times a day and prayed and gave what? Let me ask you this. If you knew a law was just passed that if you pray to any god other than the king, you'd be thrown into a lion's den, would you be praying a prayer of thanks? No, I'd probably be praying a prayer with the door closed, and I would take the prayer closet literal. I'd probably go into my... No one's going to see me do this. Right? But here's Daniel doing what he does all the time. Opens his window, faces Jerusalem, prays not once, but 3 times a day. And he prayed and he gave thanks before his God as he did aforetime. And so, yes, in words of thanksgiving we can be thankful, but also in our prayers, again, we can be thankful. I've heard some people have different acrostics for different things. And for prayer, I've seen the acrostic of Acts, like the book of Acts, A-C-T-S. And here's what they stood for. A, adoration in our prayer. C, confession. T, thanksgiving. And then lastly, S, supplication. All right? We like to put the S first. And then we forget about the A to A-C-T. So in our prayers, we can be thankful in our prayers. Psalm 92. Here's another way we can be thankful. Psalm 92. We'll look at verses 1 to verse 4. It is a good thing to give thanks unto the Lord and to sing praises unto thy name, O Most High. To show forth thy loving kindness in the morning and thy faithfulness every night. Upon an instrument of 10 strings and upon the psaltery, upon the harp with a solemn sound, For thou, Lord, hast made me glad through thy works. I will triumph in the works of thy hands. How did David say he gave thanks? In song, in singing. And you may say, oh, but I can't sing well. That's okay. When it's just you and God, no one's going to hear. Right? In a car by yourself? I mean, have you ever pulled up to a stoplight and you kind of, I don't know about you, but I have a tendency, if it's multiple lanes, to kind of go like this and then kind of go like this just to check out what's around me? Have you ever seen some people just like, it's like karaoke or Australian Idol time or, whatever, and they're just going for it. Now, granted, their windows are up so you can't hear it, or sometimes you can even through the windows, and they're just singing their heart out and having a good old time. And based on the music that you're hearing, it's not praising God, right? It's just some other song that they're singing of popular music around. Why not? Sing praises to God. And in those songs that we sing, there's a lot of hymns that we sing that are written to express our gratitude to God for what he's done. And so a way you can give thanks is actually in song, whether you can sing or not. You know the thing that's going to be wonderful when we get to heaven? We'll all be able to sing, right? You won't be like, oh no, Pastor Joe's down for leading the singing. That's like emergency plan C or D, or when we get through everyone else who can lead singing. Or the times that Brother Dieter jokes about, having to lead singing. You won't have to worry about that, because in heaven, we'll all be able to sing, right? Isn't it disappointing that we have children that can sing, but then there's us? I should speak for myself. Isn't it disappointing that all my kids can sing, but then there's me? They get that from their mom, all right? Not from me. But in song, you can sing songs to God. It doesn't matter, whether you can sing on tune or not. Just go for it, all right? And then lastly, Luke chapter 7. Luke chapter 7, we'll look at verses 11 to verse 13. It says, and this is the law of the sacrifice of peace offerings, which shall offer unto the Lord, if he offer it for a thanksgiving. Then he shall offer with sacrifice of thanksgiving unleavened cakes mingled with oil. Huh? Sorry, Leviticus 7. Did I say Luke? Here we go. That's why I'm like, yeah, that's what my Bible says. But I'm in a different book. Yeah. What I'm reading sounds like Leviticus. Leviticus 7. Sorry if I said Luke. I guess it's going to be one of those days. All right, let's start again. Leviticus 7, verse 11. This may look more like what you're seeing. And this is the law of the sacrifice of peace offerings, which he shall offer unto the Lord. If he offer it for a thanksgiving, then he shall offer with the sacrifice of thanksgiving unleavened cakes mingled with oil, and unleavened wafers anointed with oil, and cakes mingled with oil of fine flour fried. Besides the cakes, he shall offer for his offering leavened bread with the sacrifice of thanksgiving of his peace offering. All right, so another way we could give thanks is in sacrifice. Now, I'm not saying we have to do burnt offerings and all that type of stuff. That's the Levitical law. But sometimes we should give sacrificially to show that we're thankful. Has God blessed you? Right? Give back to God. Give towards a special project. Do something to be thankful. And in that same manner as the children of Israel would offer a sacrifice if they were thankful, we can sacrificially give to express our gratitude towards God. So, several ways that you can show how we should give thanks, and in our words, in our prayers, in our songs, and our sacrifice. All right? So as we can see, and this is just a small study on this idea of thankfulness. It's all throughout the Bible. And so if we are ones who follow Christ, and if we are ones who are supposed to be students of the Bible, then we should have a character trait of thankfulness. Because we are some of the most blessed people that you'll ever meet. And so we should be thankful for that. All right? I hope that can be an encouragement to you and a challenge to you as we go through day to day, because it can easily become where we get so distracted we forget about the blessings. And sometimes I think that's why Scripture tells us so many times to be thankful, because it's so easy to be forgetful, that the more you're reminded of something, the more you tend to do it, and the more thankful you are, the more you realize how blessed you are, and things don't look so bad, right? It's kind of like, I've said this before, they say the pessimist looks at the glass and says it's half empty. The optimist looks at the glass and says it's half full. But a biblical Christian should look at the glass and it should be running over, because that's what Psalms tells us.